to distinguish herself as one of the youngest brilliant senators of our generation, which I'm proud to strongly associate with her. And I'm happy that since she joined Senate, and coincidentally, the god of Senator Esther Okenyuri must be very near her, where she comes from. Because initially, it was the Senator Soipan Tuya, who is now the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Defense. She joined us midway, but I'm impressed she has learned the ropes very quickly. And her commitment and zeal and passion in how she does her legislative agenda is quite impressive. And I'm happy, you know, when you are nominated, you don't have an obligation. Her and Senator Ogola, as one of the committed nominated members, that every time we are in the House, they are always there from the beginning to the last. What I'm impressed about Senator Okenyuri is I normally see her in the village interacting. And I want to appeal to the people of Kisii. I've never done this before. That if God favors Senator Esther Okenyuri, please, in the next 14th Parliament, she should join us as an elected member of Parliament to be part of the transformation of this country. I have seen her wearing even school uniform to appeal, even wearing church clothes, the ones and interacting. So, and I want to assure the people of Kisii that Senator Okenyuri, she's up to the task. We are proud as our generation that we want to have one of the finest. Mr. Speaker, just in closing, because I have two comments and then I have four for the bill, is, you know, Senator Esther Okenyuri continues to be an inspiration to the girl child. You know, women sometimes feel inadequate, they feel they cannot compete. But since this platform has come, Senator Okenyuri has distinguished herself. And I'm happy she has not seen herself through the lenses of gender. But I want to borrow the words of Senator Ogola when a matter came before the House at some times back, which was a motive, that I'm happy she's not seeing herself through the gender lenses. She's seeing herself as an equal member of this House, and we are proud of what she is doing. My sister, we are proud of you, and I wish you well. I hope one day and one time you'll remember on 13, just before Valentine's of 2025, Mr. Speaker, I did make this prophecy. And Mr. Speaker, on a lighter note, some of us men tomorrow, we are told not to get close to the other agenda. So, because there is a flu that is affecting men, so we will not be available tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, but we will available maybe in children's home to show love to the less fortunate and others, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, secondly and finally is on the bill. I am impressed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the reason Gen Z and what happened is sad, where this parliament was attacked, is because I was surprised in the last session, the third session, Mr. Speaker. There was a lot of misinformation on Finance Bill 2023. You know, because of lack of civic education and public participation. When you used to go to functions in Bomet, I go in Nandi, Senator Ogola goes to Homa Bay, Senator Okenyuri goes to Kisii. You sit in a public baraza and you hear what people are saying is not even in the finance bill. It is because of lack of civic education, Mr. Speaker. Public participation is a key component. I am happy, Mr. Speaker, that it is mandatory now to do civic education, Mr. Speaker. And I want to challenge you. I was talking about tolling of our roads, where the government wants to toll major highways to raise 230 billion. The public participation is being done now. Many people will not attend, but when it is passed, they will start running around the country saying they were not being involved during public participation of tolling of our roads, Mr. Speaker. Even the finance bill of 2025, I want to encourage Kenyans to participate. I'm happy. And I rarely give accolades, Mr. Speaker, as you know me. But I was impressed by Senator CPA, Cabinet Secretary John Badi Ngongo, who went to Jivanji Gardens and try to demystify what finance bill is, what is in there, so that we go ahead with the facts before the fake news, which Donald Trump calls fake news, continue to reign among, Mr. Speaker. You know, this country, we thrive in fake news. And I'm happy the CS in charge of Treasury is taking the lead. I want to challenge members, as we do budget policy statements, I want to challenge members of public and members of National Assembly Finance and Budget, as they go around the country, They should at least ensure they go through 100, 290 constituencies for this public participation. Even other bills, Mr. Speaker. So the reason even Finance Bill 2023 led to uproar is because there was a lot of misinformation. People are saying you want to tax the debt, you want to tax land. But when you read a finance bill, Mr. Speaker, you agree with me and what is happening is that you do. And let us use the medium, Mr. Speaker. And I saw today you are in Citizen, the State of the Nation. And you are also doing civic education. Because you are telling Kenyans the facts. So that people do not thrive on misinformation. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that public officials will be taken through mandatory, Mr. Speaker. In clause number 5. It says public officials, including elected, who are us, and appointed officials at national, shall undergo mandatory civic education. Mr. Speaker, can you believe, for example, in Nandi today, if you go to Nandi County Assembly and ask for the budget, no one will give it to you. Not knowing that under Article 34 and 35, there is right to information and there is right to media freedom. You go to the governor's office, Nandi, we have demanded the budget, we have demanded annual development plans, county integrated development plan, the status of projects. But they will never give you. Yet it is a public document. Yet it is a right of every Kenyan, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, even I have seen, Mr. Speaker, whenever civic education is done in Homa Bay or Nandi or Bomet, when they are doing public participation and public participation for Finance Act or Finance Bill of County Assembly, they will call a few characters, give them soda and mukate and say they have done public participation. And they say sign your name and ID number and phone number. Then they take it back. Yet civic education has not been done. What is the content that is inside that bill that we are proposing, Mr. Speaker? So I'm happy that all officials, we should know that public participation precedes civic education. Let us as leaders, Mr. Speaker, even I know politics is sweet, you go to a funeral, you go to a public function, let us use even 1 or 2 minutes to engage our people and educate them on the roles that we should give, Mr. Speaker. Even on civic education, I know, Mr. Speaker, most of the NGOs have been funding this issue of civic education across many other areas, but I'm happy there will be a structure that will continue to engage them, Mr. Speaker. I want to challenge that there is a budget. You know, Mr. Speaker, civic education, and you know Senator Ogola has been a CCM in former Rasanka's government, Colonel Rasanka. Cyprian Awiti, former governor, Cyprian Awiti. And she knows very well, she will tell you from my experience, that most of the civic education awareness were being financed by non-governmental organizations. There was no allocation of budget, and if it is there, it is for soda and mkate. But you find, and you know, Mr. Speaker, you know Donald Trump has suspended everything under USAID. Yeah. So, you know, most of the NGOs used to finance civic education awareness. But I'm happy in clause number 9, county government shall ensure that there is allocation of budget for civic education. And we should brace ourselves. The USAID now is gone. Mr. Speaker, but you know I want to thank Donald Trump. And I want to thank the head of Doge, that is Elon Musk, Mr. Speaker, although he has been fighting reappropriation of land in South Africa to try and emasculate the South African government, Mr. Speaker. But I want to agree that USAID funds must be audited. Mr. Speaker, can you believe few months before Donald Trump won an election, the USAID in Kenya were purchasing 5 cars for 100 million, the latest brand of Toyota Prado, Mr. Speaker. You go to Wilsonia, these consultants of USAID fly in the morning to Kakuma and come back in the evening. They live in posh estates like Runda, Karen, where you are paying 400, 300,000 per rent. It means out of 184 billion that USAID has sent to Kenya to support Kenyans, only 10% was achieving to intended purposes. Therefore, we want to agree with the U.S. government led by Donald Trump that the USAID must be taken to the intended purpose. And we agree with them that they must be audited, because you find consultants will sit in hotels, will sit in Java and other hotels with a laptop, and they are being paid in terms of dollars, Mr. Speaker. Yet the real intention of money could not get. And therefore, most of this civic education awareness was being financed by non-governmental organization, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that even we should have a structure of engaging. Whenever public participation is done in Longisa, let us list, let us get the name, let us have a structure of engagement. I know County Governments Act, I think Section 81 on public participation as a critical component. And I'm happy Senator Okenyuri is proposing something that has been given, she's giving life to Article 10 on principles of good governance and national values, Mr. Speaker. One of them is public participation, which is anchored in civic education and awareness in our republic, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this bill, I expected all senators to be here. The reason we are fighting on the ground is because the county governments who are corrupt will never like to read the true reflection of what is happening. And that is why, as a senator, whenever you go and tell the people, for example, in Nandi, in the last financial year, I made sure around 10 billion was taken to Nandi County. People will be shocked because what they are seeing on the ground is not reflective on the equitable shareable revenue and conditional grants and on-source revenue that was allocated to counties, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I'm happy there is going to be a structure, Mr. Speaker, and it is very important. Even another aspect that is clause number 17 is grounds for registration, Mr. Speaker, which is very critical. And I'm happy, I remember there was a crackdown of NGOs. And at that time, those NGOs were being cracked down, Mr. Speaker, because they were doing something that was not intended. Also, as we allow civic education to be funded by NGOs, we don't want civic education to be done to incite the public against government or incite the public against their own country. We are aware. And you remember in 2017, because some of us were serving in this house, some of the organizations by the NGOs, some of them were being accused, allegedly, of financing terrorism in the country. Some of them are being accused funding destabilization. Mr. Speaker, you remember even in the GNC revolution, there were allegations that George Soros Foundation, Mr. Speaker, was part and parcel that were financing the revolution in the guise of civic education and awareness. I'm happy there is a legal framework to control the type of NGOs that come to the country. We are not objecting, Mr. Speaker, and let me go on record crystal clear. We are not objecting that the NGOs should not be part and parcel of process of civic awareness. But what we are saying, we must know who they are. What is their intention? What is their purpose? What is their objects? We don't want NGOs, Mr. Speaker, that will be used to destabilize governments in Africa. And when you look at across the world, it is only the NGOs that bring civic awareness on political and civil issues that are heavily financed in Africa. And we saw the sad reality of the GNC revolution, that in as much the young people had the right intention to try and fix problems that we are facing, somebody somewhere through the NGOs hijacked the process, Mr. Speaker, until they wanted to destabilize the country. Therefore, the vetting, and I want to challenge the National Intelligence Service, our security apparatus, they must vet the NGOs that do civic awareness, and Mr. Speaker. And the only way we can fix them, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that they are catalogued, they are known what they are doing, Mr. Speaker. The final part is on the issue of false statements. I agree. Mr. Speaker, fake news must be flagged. I remember, Mr. Speaker, social media must also, and I'm happy that all social media must have physical offices in Nairobi or in Kenya. Because when you open Facebook, Mr. Speaker, it has so misleading information. You open X or Twitter, you open TikTok, you open whichever social media, Instagram and others, you rarely and hardly see, Mr. Speaker. Even, Mr. Speaker, I had the IT minister. I'm lucky I survived. Mr. Speaker, I'm still a member of ICT with my sisters in Ogola. Can you believe it is only in Kenya that when you open your social media, you will get pornography being displayed in our social media, Mr. Speaker. But when you go to countries like Saudi Arabia, countries in Middle East like Emirates, United Arab Emirates, they have proper regulation and discipline in terms of all these social media accounts. It is because we have given too much freedom that does not have discipline, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, we challenge in this issue of false statements. And I'm happy, I want to recommend Senator Okenyuri, this offense of false statement and issue of calling people and telling them lies, the way some NGOs are doing in this country. I want to propose that it should be 5 million for anybody who spreads false statement. Because, Mr. Speaker, imagine If an NGO does civic awareness in Kaplong, and they tell them to overthrow, for example, hypothetically overthrow the government, is it not expensive, the side effect, than the punishment? So I want to agree that all NGOs and anybody who does civic awareness on false statement, we must ensure that they are punitive of 5 million Kenya shillings, or alternative, they should be in jail for 10 years. Because the cost of losing a country and a society, ask Somalia. Mr. Speaker, I was with some senior in this region. I was on the sidelines of the issues of DRC, M23 crisis and what have you. And I sat with the people. Some friends from Somalia were telling DRC, don't go to our route, because it is expensive to come back from where Somalia is. And it has destabilized the north of Africa, Mr. Speaker. Even in Rwanda now and DRC, we don't want to go them to that direction. And we hope on Saturday, I don't know, Senator Ogola has not given me the exact date when elections of AU will be done. I think on Saturday? Saturday immediately after Valentine, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I'm trying to get a private jet to that destination, Mr. Speaker. I want to assure, and I want to assure the naysayers, Mr. Speaker, that Raila Amolo Odinga will be elected the chairperson of African Union Community. And I want to ask Baba Raila Odinga, his first assignment must bring stability in DRC crisis we must resolve. We want an Africa that is peaceful, Mr. Speaker. We want, as Raila takes over as AUC chairman, to spearhead the issue of resolving crisis in DRC, Mr. Speaker, so that as a continent, we become more stable. And Mr. Speaker, finally, as I conclude, I don't know what is wrong with some Kenyans. There are many people who are praying for Raila to fail. You know, we are no longer patriotic, Mr. Speaker. Go to Tanzania. You saw even when Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan and my brother, my very close friend, Ambassador Balozi Njimbi, who is the presumptive deputy president of Tanzania, Mr. Speaker, and you should know that he is my close friend, the incoming deputy president of Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan. Those people are very patriotic, Mr. Speaker. You remember when they were doing their national delegates of CCM in Dodoma, all musicians from Diamond, Shusho, Sijui Zuju, and the rest showed up to show support because of patriotism of their country. But when you come to Kenya, some people are praying, and I'm told others have gone to the mountains. Others are consulting witch doctors in Indian Ocean for Raila to fail. Tunasema washindwe katika jina la Yesu. Baba must strive, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, I congratulate Senator Okenyori and wish him well. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.